I took a deep breath as we sped toward the bright starry central planet of the Xylar Alliance, one of the most powerful alliances in the galaxy. Diplomatic missions were always challenging, but this one was like no other. The Alliance was ruled not only by wealth and power, but also by oppression and fear. Xylar's tyrannical council monopolized its resources and ruthlessly dominated other planets in the galaxy. I knew there was more to this diplomatic mission than simply signing a peace treaty. I had to plan wisely. I wanted to initiate change within Xylar. As my ship approached the majestic planet of Xylar, everything looked extremely organized and sterile. The massive towers that hung in the sky shimmered with a metallic sheen, and shades of blue and silver dominated the sky, emanating from every part of the planet. There was something hidden behind this order, a restlessness, a feeling of being trapped. And I had to find a way to end this cruel order. The Council of Xylar was ruled by a formidable power, and the most important figure behind that power was Loren, the head of the council. His daughter, Princess Layla, had grown up in her father's shadow, despising the people of the galaxy and unquestioningly supporting Xylar's tyrannical rule. I was certain that Loren's daughter Layla would be my greatest obstacle, but also my greatest opportunity. When I landed on the planet, I received a cold but impressive welcome. Xylar guards led me silently into the great hall of the council. It was cold and gloomy inside. The walls were lined with shining crystals and fine metalwork, but everything seemed shrouded in an uncomfortable coldness. The members of the council were seated around a large table. Loren sat in the front row, in a throne-like chair. Next to him was Princess Layla, her sharp gaze focused on me, her eyes shining with a gleam that was both questioning and contemptuous. "Michael Harris, human diplomat," Loren said, his voice echoing around the room. "What an honor to have you visit us." I felt the sarcasm in his words. This wasn't just a game of diplomacy. A battle of wits had begun. I took a deep breath and tried to keep my voice calm. "I am here in the name of peace," I said, keeping my eyes on Loren's. But peace cannot be built with words alone. There must also be justice and equality. Loren's lips curled slightly, but Layla began to speak. "How do humans understand peace and justice?" she said in a condescending tone. "They are one of the weakest species in the galaxy. You are a technologically backward people who have never been able to fight a war." I tried not to get angry at his condescending attitude, but my plan was clear. Layla's disdain for me would change in time, for this was not just diplomacy, it was strategy. I had to destroy them from within, find the Xylar's weak points, and free her people. The first step is to show them that they should not underestimate humans in their eyes. "Perhaps humans are not as advanced in warfare as you are," I said carefully, "but our intelligence and strategies should not be underestimated." I saw a flicker in Layla's eyes, but she didn't seem to take my words seriously. After all, she was loyal to her father's cruel system. But this was only the beginning. I would get her attention, expose her weaknesses, and in time gain Layla's trust. As the days passed, I began to observe Xylar's weaknesses and the growing discontent among its people. Under the oppressive rule of the Alliance, the people had quietly submitted, but in the background there was a wave of unrest. The unfair distribution of resources and the oppressive rule had sown the seeds of rebellion among the people. I used my intelligence to find ways to deepen this unrest, carefully planning my every move and strategizing against Layla and Loren. Each time I met Layla, I tried to change her way of thinking, challenging her intelligence and strength with careful moves, each time intriguing her more and more. In time, Layla began to show herself to be more complex than I had thought. Though she seemed loyal to her father, there was a doubt within her. I could feel it. One day, when Layla and I were alone, I challenged her directly. "Do you really think this order is fair?" I said, locking eyes with her. "People's silence doesn't mean they agree. They are under pressure." Layla paused for a moment, then replied in a cold voice, "My father protects this planet. Without him there would be chaos." "Chaos," I said sarcastically. "Chaos does not begin when people are free, but when they are oppressed. And you know that. Use your intelligence, Layla. You can see the truth." At that moment, something changed in Layla's eyes. Her contempt for me was replaced by a questioning. Deep down, she knew the system was broken, but to admit it would be to betray her father. Her reluctance was my first victory. As the weeks passed, my relationship with Layla began to change. At first there was only disdain and distance, but over time we began to talk more and more. She was not as hard on me as she had been before. Sometimes we even talked about strategies together. It was then that I began to realize that there was a growing attraction between us. At first I didn't want to admit it, but every day these feelings grew stronger. Layla and I not only had a challenge, but a deep connection. One day, I took the first big step against the Council's decisions. I began to organize the people against the oppressive policies of the Xylar Alliance. Layla knew of this rebel movement, but she did not denounce me. On the contrary, she began to work with me. Her loyalty to her father was shaken, and she decided to join the fight for the people's freedom. As the secret plans Layla and I had been working on began to succeed, the peoples of the Xylar Alliance began to revolt. The Council was unable to control the situation. Lauren's powerful rule was crushed by the people's desire for freedom. And in the end, Layla stood up to her father. The Council was overthrown, and the people set free. But in the midst of victory, another truth was revealed. Layla confessed her feelings for me. We hadn't just formed an alliance. We had formed a bond of love. In the process, we learned that Layla was pregnant, an unexpected development for me, but also the beginning of a new era in the galaxy. I was no longer just a diplomat. I was the father of the child who would become the new ruler of the galaxy. Together with Layla, we pledged to bring a just order to the galaxy, to replace the Xylar Alliance with a new government based on the equality and freedom of the people, to work together to make the galaxy a place ruled by love and understanding, not war and oppression. And so humanity earned its place in the galaxy, not only through its intelligence and strategy, but also through the power of its heart. The revolution that Layla and I led was successful, and the oppressive rule of the Xylar Alliance was overthrown. The people had won their long-awaited freedom, but with victory came the more difficult process of governing the galaxy fairly. Not only did we now have a personal connection to Layla, but we also set out to build a new order with her. Although Layla was a strong leader, she carried the burden of growing up in her father's shadow. This pressure both weakened and strengthened her. The two of us tried to establish a just and peaceful rule over the remnants of the old alliance. When we learned that Layla was pregnant, I knew the future would be more complicated, not only for us, but for the galaxy. The birth of our child was a great symbol for the future of the galaxy. It would symbolize the end of the old order and the beginning of a new era of peace. As Layla's pregnancy progressed, the remaining members of the Council resistance attempted to create unrest. Even with Lauren imprisoned, there were still some loyalists who believed the old order would return. While our righteous rule was supported by the majority of the people, some factions remained loyal to the legacy of Layla's father and fought to bring the old regime back to power. One day, as Layla and I sat at the center of our newly formed government, we received word of a rebellion from the farthest reaches of the galaxy. It seemed like a small rebellion, but was clear that strong supporters of the old council were behind it. For Layla's safety and the stability of the galaxy, we had to stop this rebellion. But Layla was no longer just a leader. She was a mother, giving birth to the galaxy of the future. We must stop them, Layla said, determination shining in her eyes. This rebellion is a threat not only to my leadership and yours, but to the freedom of the people. I was surprised and amazed to see that Layla had lost none of her strength during her pregnancy. She was a warrior and a mother, and she carried both responsibilities well. Your strength and leadership inspire the galaxy, I told her. But now we must be careful. We must protect both you and our child. Layla, as always, maintained her strong stance. We must crush this rebellion, Michael. There can be no true peace and freedom in this galaxy until the shackles of the old council are completely removed. We quickly formulated our plans. We were able to pursue and neutralize the pro-old council forces, and the people, led by Layla, rose up for their freedom, stronger and more determined this time. But the strain of this trial was wearing us down, both physically and emotionally. One day, On an evening when the rebellion had ended and the galaxy was once again at peace, Layla went into labor. It was a new beginning, not only for us, but for the entire galaxy. As I held Layla's hand through the contractions, I thought about how we had changed the galaxy, how far we had come. In that moment, we were celebrating not just a revolution, but the beginning of a new life. And finally, our child was born. As I looked into our son's eyes, I witnessed the first moments of the galaxy's new leader. As Layla held the baby in her arms, she had both the love of a mother and the strength of a leader in her eyes. "This child will be the symbol of a new order," Layla said, her eyes shining. "He will continue the change we have begun." The birth of our son was greeted with celebration throughout the galaxy. It symbolized the end of the old oppressive order and the beginning of a new era of peace. Now Layla and I were a family and leaders who ruled the galaxy fairly. Changing the galaxy had been difficult, but now the real challenge began. With our newborn child, Layla and I would continue to work to rule the galaxy in peace and justice. There was no end to this journey, for peace and freedom are values that must always be protected. But with Layla's strength, our son's hope, and my strategic acumen, I was confident that we could bring true peace to the galaxy. The wars and rebellions of the past were being replaced by a future filled with hope. As the galaxy continued to grow and prosper under the just order Layla and I had established, we celebrated the beginning of a new era as a family. With the birth of our son, a new era had begun in the galaxy. The government that Layla and I had established together had laid the foundation for an order based on the principles of justice, peace, and equality among the races. But being in charge wasn't just about leading the revolution. The challenges of governing the galaxy and the constant political maneuvering we faced required us to be ever vigilant. As Layla held our son Alexander, despite the emotional intensity of new motherhood, she maintained her determination and leadership. I had always been impressed by her strong character, but knowing that as a mother she would be shaping the future of the galaxy only deepened my respect for her. For a time, the galaxy was quiet. The rebellions had been crushed, the remnants of Lauren destroyed. But we shouldn't have been fooled by this state of peace in the galaxy. The supporters of Layla's father still existed, a group of loyal followers who had gone underground, waiting for an opportunity. We knew that a new threat could arise at any moment, and we had to protect this new order lest the hopes of the people be dashed. One morning, as Layla and I were walking Alexander through the gardens of the royal palace, we received a message from my old friend, Commander Soren. Soren was the leader of a people from a planet that had suffered years of oppression under the Zarkan regime. He had fought alongside us during our revolution and was now leading the freedom movement on his home planet. I looked at Layla as I read the message, a deep thought in her eyes. "What does it say?" Layla asked, looking at Alexander. "Soren says that in the far corners of the galaxy, a group of insurgents is reorganizing. A few old families who want to restore the old order are quietly gathering strength." Layla took a deep breath and looked at me. "We knew that, but now we must act." I nodded. "If we allow this resistance to grow again, they will throw the galaxy back into chaos. That cannot be the world Alexander will grow up in." Layla held our son tighter. "We will continue to fight to protect this new order, but this time we must be wiser. We must not act until we know exactly where our enemies are and how strong they are." From that moment on, Layla and I began to formulate strategy, sending intelligence units across the galaxy to identify the areas where the former Zarkan loyalists were gathering. We knew that we had to continue to gain the trust of the people, for our enemies were not only without, but there was also a silent resistance against us from within. As the weeks passed, the intelligence reports became clearer. Remnants of the old regime were running covert operations on several planets at the edge of the galaxy. Lauren's loyalists rallied around new leaders and prepared for rebellion. But this time, they would use a different strategy. Instead of attacking directly, they would blend in with the population and try to weaken our rule. One night, as Layla and I sat down to discuss our plans, I saw determination in her eyes. "We will not let them return the galaxy to its old oppressive order," she said, her voice firm. but we cannot win with weapons alone. We must win the hearts and minds of the people. That night, we spent long hours discussing how to build deeper ties with the people, how to develop systems that would give them more freedom and representation. We had not just overthrown an oppressive regime. We had to build a new order, one that would not be based on our leadership alone, but would be open to participation by all sectors of population. Meanwhile, Alexander was growing up, showing a strong and determined character like his father. Layla successfully met the challenges of leading the galaxy while fulfilling her duties as a mother. Her leadership became a model to be emulated in every corner of the galaxy. The races trusted her strength and justice, and stood with us to lead the galaxy to prosperity. One morning, as I watched Layla and Alexander grow up, I turned to him and said, "We have changed the galaxy, but the real challenge begins now. This world our son will grow up in will not only be ours, it will be the humans." Layla smiled, her eyes sparkling. "Yes, Michael, we have brought the galaxy into the future. Now, it is time to protect it in peace." And so, together with Layla, we continued our mission to rebuild the galaxy. Amidst rebellions, enemies, and threats from the old order, we offer hope, justice, and freedom to our people. We knew that a leader's greatest responsibility was to protect the galaxy and bring peace. Throughout this journey, having Layla by my side has given me strength. Without her love, guidance, and determination, we would not have succeeded in this challenging mission. When Alexander grew up, he would follow in his mother's and my footsteps and become the true protector of this galaxy. In this galaxy where one era ends and another begins, the fight Layla and I began together was not only a story of freedom and justice triumphing, but also a saga woven with love, family, and faith. And this saga would be the foundation of a peace that would last forever. Over the years, Layla and I fought to rebuild the galaxy. We fought the remnants of the old regime and the threat of rebellion with wisdom and determination, and every people in the galaxy began to live a more peaceful life under the new order, with justice, freedom, and equal opportunity. Alexander grew up to become one of the galaxy's next generation of leaders. His compassion, intelligence, and sense of justice were a reflection of what he inherited from both Layla and me. He became a beloved leader, ready to carry our peacekeeping mission into the future. Although he was young, we had full confidence in his ability to keep the galaxy at peace. One day, Layla and I were standing on the balcony of the palace, looking up at the starry sky. It was then that I thought about how far we had come since the days of the revolution. Every moment of our lives had been filled with challenges, but through each one, our love for each other had strengthened our will to reshape the galaxy. "This is it," I said to Layla, not taking my eyes off the stars. "We fought for years. We believed. We finally did it. The galaxy is not the same. It's a better place." Layla rested her head on my shoulder and took a deep breath. "Yes," she said in a low voice, "but one of our greatest achievements was winning this war and not losing the love. For the galaxy and for our family." We looked at each other. No words were necessary. In that moment, in that silence, we had the peace of knowing that we had brought peace to the galaxy. As time passed, we grew older, but the new order we built allowed the races to live together in peace. The galaxy was kept safe through Layla's leadership, my strategic foresight, and Alexander's determination to represent future generations. At the end of this great journey, we have learned this. True victory lies not in battle alone, but in a future built on love, justice, and sacrifice. This is what Layla and I gave to our people, and now we were at peace to step back and watch the next generation live in a more peaceful world. In the end, the peace of the galaxy was our legacy.